Hello, Leanne. Congratulations on that marriage thing you have happening. You did ask about pastry, and pastry is a very good thing to know. It's not going to make or break a marriage, but might cheer it up a bit sometimes. In my food processor, you need a food processor. I have 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, and I put in about a tablespoon of Maldon salt because it's what I always have on the counter. But you can always check with Martha Stewart because this is her recipe, her pâte sable. So I have a kitchen scale, and you need one of those. Yes, you do. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put in the butter-lard combination to the flour, add a little water, and presto changeo, we have pastry. You don't have to go to the store and get those things in the little tin whatnots, you know. Some people at this point will add a little bit of sugar, depending on whether you want a particularly sweet pastry. I generally don't bother. What you want is unsalted butter, your kitchen scale, and of course a pound of butter is 500 grams, and so I'm going to want about 250 grams of butter-lard combination. Why, you wonder? Just the butter alone makes for a nice flaky but rather firmer dough. I like 3/4 butter, 1/4 lard. Some people are half and half people. You can sort of go by your taste. And so I'm just going to make sure that I have 250 grams on my scale and of Toto. So I'm going to go over. This is about perfect. Okay, so now that we've weighed our 250 grams, we're going to add it to the flour. I like to break it up a bit. The lard, of course, is just fridge temp, and it's soft, so I can just plop those in. The butter is actually frozen. You don't have to have frozen butter, but the idea is that you want your pastry overall to be as cool as possible. That's why we try never to touch it with our hands. Little frozen bits. You can do this when your butter is softer and make little cut up bits if you're a thinker, a header. And then once it's cut up, just put it in the freezer. So it's really good and cold. Cold is the main thing. When your pastry is finished and rolled out, you will see little flecks of flour in there. Happy little flecks of flour. So at this point, we're going to give it a few hoofs in the food processor. I love this Breville one. If you got one of those for your wedding. And what else? You don't want to overdo it, just until you have nice little crumbly bits. If you learned this was good stuff, or good frozen butter, if the butter is softer, it takes less of a hoof to make that happen. Now we're going to add some ice water. Now there is a school of thought out there that if you add cold ice water, half and half vodka, that it makes the pastry just a hair flakier. The theory behind that being that when it hits the hot baking stone or whatever you're putting it on, the alcohol in the vodka will evaporate quickly and make the pastry flakier. So I did try that once. I tried both of them. And by golly, I think it was just a bit flakier. but I somehow just never get around to doing that. Okay, now I'm adding flour or water and cooking just until it starts to come together. And this is the part where you'll develop a little bit of a sense over time. I'm very close. It's sort of like making your pasta dough, that it's really a feel. But basically, if you do it twice, you'll have a feel. It's not something you have to be 70. And you'll see that it's sort of a crumbly business. Now, some people actually put crushed ice in their pastry. So it's one of these things that you can experiment with, but don't go too far wrong if you stick with me. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this into 2 round discs, because you want frozen discs of pastry in your freezer at all times for those pastry emergencies that come up. For the tarts that I made for your wedding, once I had the 2 discs, I divided them into 4. I'll show you these things. Oh, doggy. This is an example of a disc for a full galette. And this is, I don't know if you can see, this is 4 little round discs for making those tart type things. Okay, so we know what our objective is. So I'm going to take one of these baggies that I pushed off the roll. I like to have a big roll of these in my life. Take the center thing out. You can get those at like Amazon or whatever. And you can take it and just dump all of this gorgeous cold pastry into a bag. Now I need to make sure that I get all those little bits from the bottom. And don't worry about anything. And you'll see I'm going to do another video tomorrow on rolling them out. But the important thing is with pastry that you should never let it sense nervousness or anxiety, because then it'll toughen up. And the reason this is true is that if you're nervous or anxious, you will probably touch it too much and work it too much and make it tough. It's probably like those jumps in figure skating. Though I will confess that I have never, I was going to say never jumped in figure skating. I've never figure skated. But anyway. So if you squish this together, you have, just show you, move over a little bit closer, you have a big round disc. And that would make 2 full pie crusts. Oops, it's not staying together terribly well. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to aim for 2 equal discs. This is where we need our kitchen scale again, and for heaven's sake, do get yourself a kitchen scale. It will save you so much grief in your life. This one is 386 grams, 391 grams. It's going to be lighter, I think. Into the second baggie. Now you will find it crumbly at this point. Don't let that bother you, because it is a crumbly business. But some people tell me that when they make pastry, they make just an unholy mess of their entire home, and that's not necessary. Although things always seem more difficult the first time you do it. I remember the first time I rolled pasta, I thought I needed assistance. 291, 333, aiming for around 360, because you don't want one big pie crust and one little one, obviously. It's a warm day here, so you want to work relatively quickly. Okay, so I have two around 360, and now what I'm doing is I am forming them together, not with my hot little hands, but quickly. And it will form up into a little disc. If you wanted to do mini tarts, of course, you'd break it into 4, and each one of these would make an individual tart for 4 people. And those are fun. And delicious, of course. So now these beauties go into the freezer, and I will meet you back here tomorrow to roll them out into little galettes like the ones that you had at your wedding. Okay, and everybody else too. See you tomorrow.